Dallas last week as they fell to the Washington football team 25-3. Dallas scored their fewest points in a divisional matchup since week 16 of 2002 in a loss to the Eagles 27-3 in that instance. Here's Jerry Jones earlier today getting a little defensive.
Does your team have a leadership void?
Where in the offensive line, where you,
just overall, when these.
But seriously, where would you have a leadership void? Is it an experience void? Is it a talent void? Is it a leadership void? I'm not trying to be cute here. The answer is no. The answer is no.
I'm asking.
There's not a. Well, just shut up and let me answer. No.
Jerry, when you go into the locker room, what I'm asking is, do you see the intangibles?
You're not asking me that. I gave you the answer. When I go into the locker room, there's no leadership void in my eyes.
Okay.
Now that's your answer. Let's move on.
All right, he spoke. No and no. James Jones and MJD here with me to predict the rest of the Cowboys' 2020 schedule. James, you got first game, Eagles on Sunday. What's the verdict?
Well, you heard the owner say, let's just move on. So they moving on to the Eagles, and I'm saying they are going to find a way to win. And listen, the hardest game to get after all this stuff out of the locker room is happening and all this stuff from the players is coming out and coaches is coming out. The hardest game to win is the first game after all this stuff, man. So they win this ball game.
JJ, you do not play for Mike McCarthy anymore. Stop. Stop it. Pittsburgh lost. No explanation needed. We just heard a whole thing about it. Pittsburgh, that's a loss for the Cowboys.
Vikings, W, Drew. W for the Vikings. Go ahead. Who you got?
Okay, the football team. We saw what happened this past weekend. I think it's going to be the same thing, another loss. I just believe that they have a talent issue now. It's not even a coaching issue. It's just you're so banged up that you don't have enough there. So, loss.
Well, back-to-back losses because Lamar Action Jackson and the Ravens, we know what the Cowboys defense is giving right now. They're giving up everything, the run, the pass, everything. Lamar Jackson, they lose that game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a loss again against the Bengals. I believe in Joe Burrow and company. They're getting better. Listen, at the end of the day, you have to have talented players to win in this league. If you don't have those guys because of injury, you're not going to win, Jay. You know this, Jay. Why are we doing this?
So the wins that we got up there right now is against very average teams. So you're going to have to beat a good football team. I'm going to say they find a way to beat a good football team in the Niners and win this ball game right here. You can't win all the easy ones. You got to find a way to win the tough ones. They win this one, Drew.
Listen, I believe Carson Wentz and company, they find a way to win. I believe the Dallas Cowboys, they find a way to lose week after week. It's another loss for me.
Well, this whole division finds ways to lose, Drew. And that's the Giants as well. So I'm going to say the Cowboys finish off strong with a W. I don't know if it's finish off strong because I don't know how many wins that is for the season, but they find a way to beat the Giants in this game.
I don't know what to say to you.
James Jones. 6-10, you guys have them finishing here. But James Jones, they're going to beat the Niners. Bye. I'm done. Bye.
You got to win a tough game.
Appreciate y'all. That's not going to be the one, though. James Jones, MJD, thanks. All right, let's get you caught up on what's happening across the NFL. Tom Pelissero with us now. Staying with the Cowboys, they made another move today, Tom.
That's right, MJ. The Cowboys traded defensive end Everson Griffin to the Detroit Lions for a conditional 6th-round draft pick in 2021. Now, we know that Dallas has been struggling on defense. They had a little bit of a logjam at defensive end once Randy Gregory came off his suspension. Frankly, the Cowboys thought that Griffin had lost a step, that he was starting to get frustrated about that. Well, by moving on from him, not only do they get the pick, they free up snaps for other people. They also take about $3 million in salary and bonuses off the books. You see the comment from Jaron Kearse, his former Vikings teammate. They're now reunited with the Lions. Detroit thinks that they are getting a really motivated guy who knows this division. He is still a good player. It's pass rush at a low cost. They want to have a rotation of rushers after getting only 8 sacks through the first 6 games. Now, because of the COVID-19 protocols, Griffin will not be ready to play this Sunday against the Colts, which means, MJ, his Lions debut will come November 8th against his old team, the Vikings, in Minnesota.
All right, let's stay on the topic of timelines. Antonio Brown is in the Bucs facility. What is the timeline on when he can play and practice?
OMJ, Antonio Brown signed his one-year, $1 million deal with the Bucs this morning. It also includes $1.5 million in incentives. For now, he can do practically everything except practice or play. He can be in meetings. He can do strength and conditioning. Will not play Monday night against the Giants. But come next Tuesday, his suspension will be lifted. He can make his debut November 8th against the Saints. Comes at a good time for Tampa because Chris Godwin suffered a fractured left index finger on a touchdown catch against the Raiders last week. He will not play Monday night, potentially after having surgery this morning, could get back against the Saints. Meanwhile, another veteran receiver, Dez Bryant, has found a new home. He is signing to the Ravens practice squad. He wrote on Twitter his emotions were running high. He can't stop crying. His goal, of course, make his way to Baltimore's active roster. He has not played in a regular season NFL game, MJ, since New Year's Eve 2017.
It has been a minute, I'm sure. Anxious.
They don't like us. We damn for sure don't like them.
Well, now, where's the blue? We on this hell today. This is our championship. Today is our day. They got him. Loose ball.
Now comes back to his right. Throws the pass. Touchdown, Pittsburgh. Flacco's going to be stacked up.
That's big time defense right there.
It's intercepted, and he's in for the touchdown.
The Ravens offense delivers the miracle.
There's some hit, there's some jawing, there's everything we thought there would be.
Hit by Polamalu.
Ball's out. He kind of did force Jacoby Jones back into the field.
He's got Steve Smith Sr. Touchdown. Jackson looking to the end zone, fires. Caught for a touchdown. Howard's his way inside the 5. Touchdown. The Ravens are back in front.
Driving for the end zone is James Conner for the touchdown that puts the Steelers ahead.
You got two teams that respect one another but don't like one another.
And the Ravens extend their lead.
That is Juju Smith-Schuster getting away for the touchdown. The Steelers have clinched the AFC North.
Woo! All right, here's how these two teams match up this season. The Steelers are the only undefeated team left in the NFL. Ravens stand at 5-1. Pittsburgh also averaging slightly more points per game than Baltimore. But beware of the Ravens defense, which is tops in the league in points allowed. Here's Mike Tomlin on the rivalry.
We're back in the kitchen, man. It's AFC North ball. You know, we like that. We respect it. It's cool to be in what we believe is the game of the week for the third week in a row. We're humbly honored to be in that. We like to show that respect with how we prepare and then ultimately how we play. You know what the Ravens games are about, man. They are a top-notch organization and football team. They got talent across the board. They're familiar with us. We're familiar with them. There's continuity within schematics on both staffs and core players and things, and I think that that's what adds to the intrigue. You should anticipate it being a physical and rough and tumble game because history tells us that.
Our starting roster here. Welcome in Aditi Kinkabwala, Michael Robinson, and D'Angelo Hall. And Aditi, I want to start with you because in the defense, no Devin Bush this week for the Steelers. So how are they adjusting?
Well, that was indeed a significant loss last week, of course, MJ, because he was the play caller of their defense. He's the guy that wore the headset helmet. He's the one that set the defense. But now the Steelers brought in Robert Spillane, an undrafted free agent who prior to the previous week when Bush got hurt had played a grand total of just 2 defensive snaps. And let me tell you, MJ, he lowered his shoulder. He took on Derrick Henry. He earned a lot of applause on this Steelers sideline. There were 2 concerns with him. Not his communicating ability, not his ability to set the defense, but his conditioning. And the Steelers only had him play half the defensive snaps. And then also how he would do against that play action, whether there would be any confusion because of his inexperience and maybe any indecisiveness. On that note, I'll say that he did do well, but I'll turn it to you, D. Hall. Against the Ravens, it does get a little trickier, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Aditi. You talk about this great Pittsburgh defense being able to stop Tennessee, but when you face the Ravens, it is totally different because they incorporate that quarterback into their run game, and so it makes you defend them totally different. And, yes, it's going to be a total group effort, and you best believe Mike Tomlin has told his defense that every player on every level of his defense has to know where Lamar Jackson is. You have to respect him. And ultimately, a lot of times, these safeties, Terrell Edmonds, Mika Mika Fitzpatrick, two of the best safeties in the league. Those two guys are going to be involved in the run game. That is the only way you can combat for a scrambling quarterback in this league, is you got to bring them safeties down into the box and incorporate them into the run game.
You're right. And you know what? The Steelers have actually had some success against Lamar Jackson. Tomlin said that doesn't necessarily mean anything going forward. But let's flip it to the other side, right? Because the Steelers definitely need a bigger rebound game out of Ben Roethlisberger. It was a tough outing Sunday in Tennessee. It started well, didn't go so great. But the one thing that he does have going for him is this absolutely deep group of pass catchers. It's deeper than anybody that he's ever worked with. And it's also kind of a different guy every week. We saw Juju started the season with 2 touchdowns. Then suddenly Chase Claypool came out. Then James Washington had a good game against the Browns. And this past week, it was Deontay Johnson. We asked Mike Tomlin, do you kind of know who the mismatch is going to be every week? And Emrab, I guess it's up to us to guess whose turn it is, right?
Yeah, it is up to us to guess. And Ben Roethlisberger's doing a great job of just getting the ball out to those playmakers. He leads the National Football League in getting the ball out of his hands at 2.29 seconds per drop back. That is phenomenal, right? That doesn't even allow the defense to scheme up a blitz to get it to you. And I think the reason why you're seeing different pass catchers kind of have breakout games every week for the Pittsburgh Steelers is because opposing defenses, they're taking away what went off the week before. And so Ben Roethlisberger just getting the ball out, taking what the defense gives him, and getting the ball to the playmakers. But he's going to definitely have to get the ball out of his hands this week. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens, they blitz at some of the highest rate in the National Football League, and they got a guy that used to play for the Minnesota Vikings, used to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Yannick Ngakoue, who's now on this Baltimore Ravens team. He was leading the Minnesota Vikings through the early part of the season in sacks. He definitely knows how to get to the quarterback. They're going to have to keep their eyes on him, maybe keep a back end sometimes to make sure he doesn't disrupt Ben Roethlisberger and his flow.
Emrab, you're right. The Ravens are the only team in the NFL that actually blitz more than the Steelers. But I will leave you with this one. The quarterback who has the best completion percentage against the blitz is Ben Roethlisberger. MJ, it'll be a fun one to watch there, especially with how quickly Roethlisberger has been going through his progressions this year.
No question. What makes this matchup so spicy, these conversations so hype, is the way these teams are playing. But on top of that, of course, as we all know, the rivalry. And no one better to take us through that than Brian Billick. So I want to bring in Coach here to talk about this because, Coach, you were in it, in the thick of it. What was it like being part of that?
Well, it's the best rivalry in football. I think most football people will tell you that. Some great rivalries around the league, but with regards to both organizations, the winning tradition of both teams, and typically these teams are both going to be pretty good. Now, you're talking about 6-0 and 5-1. That takes it even to another level. Last year, the Steelers got swept, but you got to kind of throw it away. Last game was a throwaway game. None of the starters play. First game, Ben Roethlisberger didn't play. The key, obviously, is yes, Ben Roethlisberger is back. He's going to challenge that defense. And this defense with the pass rush, they lead the league in sacks. Their ability to bring Dupree and Watt off the outside, it's going to give Lamar Jackson some issues. And let me show you some tape. Here's what I think Lamar Jackson's going to have to do. Last year, he ran 7 times for 160 yards. Certainly that's going to be a factor. But with a 4-man rush, this is against the Cleveland Browns. This is what the Steelers can't do. They can't, on a 4-man rush, leave this kind of alley. And what Lamar Jackson can't do is just arbitrarily pull it down and run, although he's very good at it. Here, he keeps his vision down the field. As they react to Lamar Jackson, he finds that hole in the zone. Now, even more so, we're going to look at another play against the Cleveland Browns. This, again, is a 4-man rush. I expect a little bit more 5-man rush from Pittsburgh. Motion right now tells you it's man coverage. Lamar Jackson know with man, if I can buy some time in the huddle, and he does a great job. He doesn't just bail and run out. He moves around and moves to the right, moves back to the left, because he knows whether it's Mark Andrews, whether it's Marquise Brown, someone's going to work open versus man, and he can deliver a shot like that. So I think the big key is the pressure they can put on Lamar Jackson. Can they minimize the big plays down the field? And, of course, Ben Roethlisberger has to do against the Ravens what he's been doing all year long. He's raised the level of that young receiving core, and they're very dynamic right now. The Ravens have got to get pressure on him. This is going to be classic Steelers and Ravens. Typically, the winner, 3 points or less.
Woo! I love that, Coach. And, of course, another exciting chapter added to this storied history between these two teams. Coach Billick, thank you. All right, moving on to the Cowboys. Things